alive. Got here just in time when I hit and wait on line. But when I lost my mind and I ain't been here long. The barrels in the pound going up, down, up, down, up, down. Tonight we gonna raise, hold I'm on the cane, cause there's money in the bank. Tomorrow Saturday, so if they pass that fifth jack this way, I turn it up, down, up, down, up, down. We're just holding it down here in BFE, still rolling around with the scene. Green bird, 5 minutes sleep, yeah, bouncing up, down, up, down, up, down. We gotta work, we don't need to rest. Turn this parking lot to a party with a nice chest and some cold beer, man. We live it up, down, up, down. We live it up, down, yeah.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Haven't seen you in a while.
I know. Well, I'm glad probably been before COVID. So, yeah, long time. It's like crazy to think that, it's been like 4 years.
So Up Down, big hit for Morgan Wallen.
Yeah.
And so tell me, how did that song come about? How did you come up with the idea? Who'd you write it with?
I wrote that song with Michael Hardy, the artist Hardy, another buddy, Brad Clausen, and Hardy and I had like a weekly for a couple years, and he actually played in my band on the road for a couple years during that kind of time too. And one day Hardy was like, "Hey, I got this friend, Brad Clausen, want him to hop in on this ride?" We didn't have another third, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." I'd never met him before. So it was the first time we met. And we just went over to Hardy's apartment. I think he had that "we live it up down here" kind of idea. I think he might have had the whole maybe trying to figure out how to play on the whole up and down thing. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's super cool. And I feel like we wrote that first verse and chorus pretty decently fast. And we had to call it. Didn't have a second verse.
Meaning you had to come back another day.
We had to come back another day, yeah. And what's funny is that Brad kept going, "Guys, there's something to this song. We need to finish it." And we were just always busy and like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, but we need like, I don't know, we just kept kicking. It was about a year before he wrote a second verse. And I don't think it wasn't the final one, but it was like, what about something like this? You know what I mean? Right. And then kind of via like text and email, we like, between the three of us, kind of pieced together a second verse. Yeah. And then at the top of 2017, Hardy played, Brad did too. I think they both played the Key West Songwriter Festival. Seth England, I think, was at both of their shows, if I've heard correctly. And I think they both played that song because Hardy was actually just really starting to like think about putting out his own music. Seth comes up to him after, he sends it to Joey. They talk,
Joey's the producer.
So Joey Moy. I'm getting all this info from Hardy. So Hardy, like, during Key West, he was like, "Hey, dude, Seth just came up and was like, I love Up Down. You mind sending me the demo? Like, we got this artist, Morgan Wallen, might be interested." So it was like, okay, this was like May.
And you're like, who is Morgan
Which
Wallen?
I was pretty familiar because I
Okay.
loved that The Way I Talk song. But he only had like a 5 or 6 song EP out at that time. And it was still a pretty relative unknown.
Right.
But I was like, man, that guy's got a great voice. Like, I had 1 or 2 cuts at this point, but, still, like, thrilled to have anybody cut one of my songs. I mean, I guess I still am. But May, that happened. June, Hardy calls and he goes, "Hey, dude, I just heard that they officially cut it." I was like, "No way." July, he calls me and he goes, "This is crazy, dude, but FGL is going to do the feature on it." And I was like, whoa, like, that's big. I mean, they're, big. They were the biggest thing in the world at that time. And then August, Hardy calls me and he goes, "Hey, dude, great news. It's going to officially be the first single from his next record." And then, yeah, that next summer, 2018, was when it went #1. But it was funny, like, I was promoting songs to secondary radio during that time.
For yourself.
For myself. Yeah. And it was funny, I'd obviously be able to talk about that song. And it was just crazy how, like, most of the radio people were like, "Oh, yeah, you got that new Florida Georgia Line single." Like, even a lot of the fans were like, had no clue who Morgan was at that time. It really wasn't until I think Whiskey Glasses was a hit where everyone was like, "Oh yeah, there's this guy and he's the Up Down guy." He's, so it was crazy to be a part of that and, get to be a part of that ride. And, the label was really nice. And took us to a freaking dinner at the Palm and did a bunch of cool stuff. And a bunch of the radio promo team got like up down tattoos because I think it was the label's first #1.
Oh, wow.
I think it was Big Loud's, if I believe so. Maybe I can't remember if Chris Lane had a #1 before that and not. I can't remember. I'm not 100%. But like a bunch of people, I ended up like Hardy got the tattoo. Me and Morgan were like the only two who were like, we don't have tattoos. Not sure if this is going to be our first one. So I was like, if Morgan gets it, I'll get it. And Morgan was like, I don't know. Not sure if I really want like a little up down arrow to be my first tattoo. So I still don't know if he has any.
But
tattoos.
you know how many? Because I experienced this with my first hit, "Beautiful Mess."
Yeah.
Like people, when I play it at a writer's night somewhere, somebody will come up and they'll be like, "Oh, I got this tattoo. It says 'Beautiful Mess' because of the song."
Yeah,
like,
dude.
so you'll probably spawned a lot of tattoos.
I'm sure
out
there's a
there.
lot of people that have "We Live It Up" down here tattoos. Like you never know. Like, dude, and that song's been crazy because it was so simple, and like the chorus is so easy. Like the amount of people that sent me videos or I saw on TikTok of like parents showing their like barely verbal young children singing along to the song. I think that's one of the funny things about that is people are always like, when we're talking about songwriting, like you got to keep it, what is it? Keep it simple, stupid. Like keep it like simple, but like, so it's that fine line between so simple that no one cares and like, crafted enough, but still easily consumable. And I think we just got really lucky that day of doing a song that was really catchy with just a fun message. I feel like there was a lot of bro country. Like bro country was it was coming out of bro country into like, as I call it, the boyfriend country area where there was a lot of like Thomas Rhett, Die a Happy Man's, a lot of those like,
right.
There wasn't a lot of party songs on the radio at that time. And I think, that song kind of like ramping up from like the beginning of the year into the summer and kind of being like the party song of that 2018 summer just kind of stuck out to people of being like a little bro country, but not really. Like it was just a fun up tempo. Yeah, I mean, I think we just kind of hit all the things on the head there, and it was freaking crazy.
Yeah. So you were talking about singing, having songs that you can sing along to, and I think what you hit on, what that song does is, you want a simple song, but it has to be interesting. And that's the hardest song to write. Anyone can write simple, anyone can
Yes.
write complex, but when you have to split those hairs where it's easy enough to remember, but it's
Yeah.
also interesting, so you keep wanting to hear it over and over.
Yeah, and I think part of that is melody. I mean, I guess a simple lyric with an unbelievable melody, I think, can go a lot farther than a great lyric with a really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like country is just trying to thread that needle between like catchy melodies and lyrics that mean something to people, and whether as shallow as like, I want to say the lyrics shallow, but in the sense that like it's kind of a party song, but it kind of we try to touch on a couple of different things and wrapping up the whole up and down. It was just slightly different. I think it was just unique enough and just catchy enough. And I love playing the song. I play it at every one. I usually close most of my shows with it because it's fun. I actually do like a little Freebird medley with it too, where I play a little because
wow.
when we were
That I
like
wanna hear.
when we were talking about like when we were writing the song, and we were like, man, like riding down the road and like having your head bobbing to some music. We were like, that is a thing. That's something going up down. We're like, what is like a song that would be cool? And I'm like, well, Freebird. And then we were like, at what point does the music start bumping? It's literally right at 5 minutes that the music starts going up. And I'm like, dude, Freebird 5 minutes deep. I'm like, that's freaking cool as crap. So, and I, being the Ronnie Van Zant kind of style hat that I always wear, I don't know. It's just, it's cool. Kind of got that Southern rock kind of stamp on that song, which is, one of my, all my biggest influences are kind of that Southern rock kind of thing. So,
We tell our Songtown members all the time that most of our listeners are aspiring songwriters and artists, and we tell them all the time, you're not going to start out in the music business. You're not going to go write a song with Brad Paisley and have a Brad Paisley hit, or you're not going to now go write with Morgan Wallen and have a hit. You're going to do it like you did. You're going to write with the crew around you, and you're going to come up together.
yeah.
And that's the way it always happens.
And that seems to be, even when I talk to guys like you who've had a ton of hits over a long period of time, like that's the way. And yeah, I get hit up by, aspiring songwriters a lot, and they're like, "Can you send my song to Morgan Wallen?" I'm like, "Dude, I can barely send my own songs. He's on top of the world." It's very hard to get to those people, and there's a lot of um, handlers that you got to get through or whatever. And I even have a relationship with most of the people at that label, and I send them songs of mine, but like I have to be very choosy. It's got to be a song that I think is an absolute smash. I don't want to send anything that's not like, an amazing song to those people, because you don't want that, you send them one less than stellar song and all of a sudden they're like, ooh, what is this guy thinking?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, so, your reputation and I remember when I first came to town, I was very fortunate to have had a couple publisher meetings really before I was ready. And I remember them going, yeah, man, like there's something to like, we can tell you're talented, but like the songs just aren't there.
Right.
And they were just like, well, keep sending us stuff. You know what I mean? And then like they never responded ever again. And it wasn't until I got a publishing deal that all of those publishers came back out of the woodworks and went, I knew you were going to get a pub deal one day. I'm like, yeah, but you never. And I was very lucky to have just gotten into that meeting the first time. But yeah, those people, their first impression was not stellar songs. So, and I always tell people, I'm like, man, I'm just really weary of getting into those meetings because it's so hard to ever get those people to, first impressions are everything.
First
so,
impression.
And I got very lucky, finally getting an internship at Seagale.
Yeah.
The whole last year leading up until this internship, I like made a point to write every day. And that was like the first time in my life where I wasn't like.
So how was that when you
Yeah.
were writing every day? I know for me, when I got a pub deal at EMI years ago, and all of a sudden I was expected to write every day. I think I wrote like 30 songs my first year. I was not equipped to write
Really?
every day. Like,
Well, I
So
feel
was
like
it
I had
easier
heard.
for
Well,
you?
I feel like I had heard from guys like you. I had a mentor, Jim McCormick,
yeah.
early on, who I just met in passing. He's from New Orleans. I'm from Baton Rouge, so we kind of just hit it off over Louisiana stuff, and we didn't write for years. We just got coffee, and he would. And it's funny, like it makes me laugh looking back now, because I feel like we'd get together and he'd be like, oh, you really need to focus on this. And then like the next 6 months, it was like the complete opposite advice. You know what I mean? Because he's hearing what, and knowing I want to be an artist.
Right.
So he'd be like, oh, you got to hit the road. No, don't focus on the road. Focus, you know what I mean? But I remember one time he was like, dude, you got to write every day. And what I mean, like something, get as many co-writes as you can.
Right.
Because he goes, you're just going to get better. And he was like, I can tell that and this really stuck with me. He's like, I can tell you know what a good song is, but I can tell that you're not executing perfectly commercial songs just yet. But he goes, but I
Yeah.
feel like you're, 50 to 80% there. Like there's pieces of lyrics that are great. There are pieces of melodies, but they're just not hitting on all, all the pieces aren't coming together.
Yeah.
And he goes, and I feel like the more you write, it's going to do this and it's going to come together. And he was right. My last, like that last full year of me being at Belmont, I just went, all right, I'm going to write every single day. So that, I don't know, but I just went from, I could tell my songs made just a huge improvement during that year. And towards the end of that year was when I really wrote most of the songs that I got on my pub deal off of. So I kind of ramped up into that. And it was kind of crazy. Like my last semester, I started that internship in January. Like a week or two in, Mike Owens, who was the VP at the time, was like, if you got songs, like, we'll listen. And I was like, dude, I got 7 demos right here. Like, this is my best stuff I got. And he was like, well, come into my office. Like, I'll listen 1, maybe 2. Puts the CD on. He ends up listening to the whole thing. And he's turned around, like, looking at his speakers, like, doing the whole music business style. Like, and he just, like, like,
So
after
his
that,
back's to you.
his back's
and
to
he's
me.
listening.
And he's
Yeah.
looking at his speakers at his wall. And I could tell he's kind of just doing this. And then, like, he'd pause it after that. And he'd go, who you write that with? And I was like, my roommate and another friend that doesn't have a pub deal. I might have had one at that point that I had written, like, with Jim McCormick at the end of the CD, just to say I knew a published writer, he gets to the end and he turns around and he goes, I'm not going to lie, dude, I really was expecting this CD to be awful because most of our interns' music is terrible. But he was like, I'm blown away. Do you mind if I show some of the other writers and maybe, you know, Chris or some of the other people around here and just see what they think to make sure I'm not crazy. And I was like, dude, he said, can I keep the CD? I was like, I'll give you 20 more. You know what I mean?
And for those of you that don't know, Mike Owen, he was known as a song guy.
He was a song guy.
So for you to impress him, he really had to hear something good because, like you said, he wasn't expecting to hear anything good,
Totally.
and he usually doesn't. So
No,
yeah.
exactly. And it really said a lot. And I was singing all the demos, which I think helped just from like them seeing a little artist potential at the time. When they first signed me, they were like, hey, we're not doing any artist stuff. Like, this is just a straight pub deal,
Right.
you know, intro pub deal draw. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a straight pub deal. But yeah, I mean, he showed, so that was like a Tuesday. It was just like the second
But
week.
see that I think that's good because, like my first deal, they signed me as an artist,
Oh, really?
and so they never pitched my songs because, you know, that I wasn't a writer to them, and so they signed you as a writer, and I think that was probably
It helped me a
good
lot.
thing.
Yeah. Cause and they were like, I mean, they just pitched everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, even if I do want to end up cutting a record at some point, the best way to get A&R people to be a fan of you is through being a writer. And then, you know, Sam Hunt,
Right.
even Luke Bryan writing good directions for Billy Currington,
Yeah.
like kind of helped. So yeah, I think that was just more of the path. Eric Pasley, you know what I mean? There
Eric,
was a ton of guys that they wrote a couple hits for other people. It helped get them A&R fans who gave them a record deal, gave them a shot.
Eric, I co-wrote his first cut when he came to town. We got a Donnie and Marie cut.
Dude, that's so awesome. That's so epic. I love that. Which is just, I mean, that's
tease
bucket
him
list
about
kind of
that.
stuff, dude. That's cool. It's cool. It's funny to laugh about it, but it's legendary.
Yeah. Can you play us one of your songs that you're hot on now?
Yeah, let me see. You know what? I'm gonna do a song. I put this one out a couple years ago, but
The ice in this glass seems to melt way too fast these nights. Yeah, the buzz never lasts, and I'm still chasing what I had but can't find. 'Cause you know when it's good, and you know when it's cheap. But I take what I can get when I can't get what I need. Darling, loving you is like drinking the good stuff. And when you've had the best, the rest ain't strong enough. Try to move on, but every last calling hits me. Everything but you is watered down whiskey.